young prisoners, whom I had smitten by the clover rick, and 2 dead Doones were left behind, whom, as we buried them in the churchyard, without any service over them, I for my part was most thankful that I had not killed. For to have the life of a fellow man laid upon one's conscience, deserved he his death or deserved it not, is to my sense of right and wrong the heaviest of all burdens, and the one that wears most deeply inwards, with the dwelling of the mind on this view and on that of it. I was inclined to pursue the enemy, and try to capture more of them; but Jeremy Stickles would not allow it, for he said that all the advantage would be upon their side, if we went hurrying after them, with only the moon to guide us. And who could tell but what there might be another band of them, ready to fall upon the house, and burn it, and seize the women, if we left them unprotected. And when he put the case thus, I was glad enough to abide by his decision. And one thing was quite certain, that the Doones had never before received so rude a shock, and so violent a blow to their supremacy, since first they had built up their power, and become the lords of Exmoor. I knew that Carver Doone would gnash those mighty teeth of his, and curse the men around him for the blunder, which was in truth his own, of over-confidence and carelessness. And at the same time, all the rest would feel that such a thing had never happened while old Sir Ensor was alive, and that it was caused by nothing short of gross mismanagement. I scarcely know who made the greatest fuss about my little wound, mother, or Annie, or Lorna. I was heartily ashamed to be so treated like a milksop, but most unluckily it had been impossible to hide it; for the ball had cut along my temple, just above the eyebrow, and being fired so near at hand, the powder too had scarred me. Therefore it seemed a great deal worse than it really was, and the sponging, and the plastering, and the sobbing, and the moaning, made me quite ashamed to look Master Stickles in the face. However, at last I persuaded them that I had no intention of giving up the ghost that night; and then they all fell to, and thanked God with an emphasis quite unknown in church. And hereupon Master Stickles said, in his free and easy manner, for no one courted his observation, that I was the luckiest of all mortals in having a mother and a sister and a sweetheart to make much of me. For his part, he said, he was just as well off in not having any to care for him; for now he might go and get shot, or stabbed, or knocked on the head, at his pleasure, without any one being offended. I made bold upon this to ask him what was become of his wife, for I had heard him speak of having one. He said that he neither knew nor cared, and perhaps I should be like him some day. That Lorna should hear such sentiments was very grievous to me; but she looked at me with a smile, which proved her contempt for all such ideas; and lest anything still more unfit might be said, I dismissed the question. But Master Stickles told me afterwards, when there was no one with us, to have no faith in any woman, whatever she might seem to be; for he assured me that now he possessed very large experience for so small a matter, being thoroughly acquainted with women of every class, from ladies of the highest blood to Bonarobas and peasants' wives; and that they all might be divided into 3 heads, and no more, that is to say, as follows: first, the very hot and passionate, who were only contemptible; second, the cold and indifferent, who were simply odious; and third, the mixture of the other 2, who had the bad qualities of both. As for reason, none of them had it; it was like a sealed book to them, which if they ever tried to open, they began at the back of the cover. Now I did not like to hear such things, and to me they appeared to be insolent as well as narrow-minded. For if you came to that, why not men as well as women be divided into the same 3 classes, and be pronounced upon by women as beings even more devoid than their gentle judges of reason? Moreover, I knew, both from my own sense, and from the greatest of all great poets, that there are, and always have been, plenty of women good and gentle, warm-hearted, loving and lovable, very keen, moreover, at seeing the right, be it by reason or otherwise. And upon the whole, I prefer them much to the people of my own sex, as goodness of heart is more important than to show good reason for having it. And so I said to Jeremy, "You have been ill-treated, perhaps, Master Stickles, by some woman or other?" "Ah, that have I," he replied with an oath; "and the last on earth who should serve me so, the woman who was my wife. A woman whom I never struck, never wronged in any way, never even let her know that I like another better. And yet, when I was at Berwick last, with the regiment on guard there against those vile moss troopers, what does that woman do but fly in the face of all authority, and of my especial business, by running away herself with the biggest of all moss troopers. Not that I cared a groat about her, and I wished the fool well rid of her; but the insolence of the thing was such that everybody laughed at me, and back I went to London, losing a far better and safer job than this, and all through her. Come, let's have another onion." Master Stickles' view of the matter was so entirely unromantic, that I scarcely wondered at Mistress Stickles for having run away from him to an adventurous moss trooper. For 9 women out of 10 must have some kind of romance or other to make their lives endurable; and when their love has lost this attractive element, this soft dew fog, if such it be, their love itself is apt to languish, unless its bloom be well replaced by the budding hopes of children. Now Master Stickles neither had, nor wished to have, any children. Without waiting for any warrant, only saying something about captus in flagrante delicto, if that be the way to spell it, Stickles sent our prisoners off, bound, and looking miserable, to the jail at Taunton. I was desirous to let them go free, if they would promise amendment; but although I had taken them, and surely therefore had every right to let them go again, Master Stickles said "not so." He assured me that it was a matter of public polity; and of course, not knowing what he meant, I could not contradict him, but thought that surely my private rights ought to be respected. For if I throw a man in wrestling, I expect to get his stakes; and if I take a man prisoner, why he ought in common justice to belong to me, and I have a good right to let him go, if I think proper to do so. However, Master Stickles said that I was quite benighted, and knew nothing of the constitution, which was the very thing I knew, beyond any man in our parish. Nevertheless, it was not for me to contradict a commissioner, and therefore I let my prisoners go, and wished them a happy deliverance. Stickles replied, with a merry grin, that if ever they got it, it would be a jail deliverance, and the bliss of dancing; and he laid his hand to his throat in a manner which seemed to me most uncourteous. However, his foresight proved too correct, for both those poor fellows were executed soon after the next assizes. Lorna had done her very best to earn another chance for them, even going down on her knees to that common Jeremy, and pleading with great tears for them. However, although much moved by her, he vowed that he durst do nothing else. To set them free was more than his own life was worth, for all the country knew by this time that 2 captive Doones were roped to the cider press at Plover's Barrows. Annie bound the broken arm of the one whom I had knocked down with the club, and I myself supported it; and then she washed and rubbed with lard the face of the other poor fellow, which the torch had injured, and I fetched back his collar bone to the best of my ability. For before any surgeon could arrive, they were off with a well armed escort. That day we were reinforced so strongly from the stations along the coast, even as far as Minehead, that we not only feared no further attack, but even talked of assaulting Glen Doone, without waiting for the train bands. However, I thought that it would be mean to take advantage of the enemy in the thick of the floods and confusion; and several of the others thought so too, and did not like fighting in water. Therefore it was resolved to wait and keep a watch upon the valley, and let the floods go down again. End of chapter 49. Read by Landy in Sydney, Australia, November 2008.